Hi, I'm Daniel Lucas, and welcome to Book 101 Review. Book 101 is all about the books that I've read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. He is the author of the book How to Be a Financially Free, no other than Mr. Paul Craan.
Hey,
Welcome to Book 101, Mr. Paul, and can you please introduce more about yourself?
yeah, well, I'm Paul Craan, and I've been trying to write this book for a while, and I finally got a chance to write it because I help a lot of my clients improve their finances, and then they told me, hey, you need to write a book so you can help other people too. So I said, okay, let me go ahead and see if I can get that done, and I was able to write this book. I love this book. Something weird happened to me yesterday. I was kind of walking to my office, and someone came up to me and said, "Hey, are you Paul?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm Paul." And then he told me,
Hmm.
"Guess what? My wife read your book." And I was
Yes.
like, "Really?" So it's kind of like my first fan encounter that happened yesterday, actually. So that was kind of exciting. And then he said, "Oh my God, my wife loved your book. I read your book, and I think I think we can follow some of the steps that you have laid out in the book." And it was great. It was a great experience. He actually took a picture with me and everything. So that was kind of like my first fan encounter. So I kind of like enjoyed that a little bit. Meeting
Ye-
people that actually read the book.
Yes, indeed, Mr. Paul Craan. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge to the world. What is the core message you hope readers take away from your book?
Well, one of the main things I hope people take away from the book is that there are a lot of other things that you can enjoy in life instead of focusing so much on finances. It's a book about finances, but it's also about how uh, if you spend 90% of your time thinking about money, how to make more money, I need a raise, I need a promotion. You're going to miss out on all the other things in life that are important. For example, spending time with your kids, your wife, your friends, your family. You're going to miss out on all that time, which is more valuable than the money itself. So I try to let them know, look, we can take care of the money if you organize yourself a little bit. You can take care of that money part. This will allow you to enjoy the rest of your life. So I say, look, let's go ahead and organize the finances and give you some opportunity to enjoy the other part of your life. So that's kind of like the real message of the book here. And another message I want to share is that you don't need to, I don't know, dance on TikTok or do anything like that.
Yes.
I said you can, whatever job you're doing, whatever it is that you're doing in life, you can use that money to save up, and then you can live the lifestyle that you want to live. You don't necessarily need to fly around in a private jet to be happy. And I said, because if you're not happy at home, you're not going to be happy in Italy, or you're not going to be happy on the beach. I said, look, it doesn't matter where you go. Okay, you're still going to be the same person. So I said, let's kind of work on being happy at home, okay, and focus on peace of mind, and focus on actually taking care of your finances so that you won't be so stressed about money. And those little things I cover a lot in the book. And of course I give you tips. For example, there are some things that I try to explain to people that about debt, about assets, and things like that. And I said, look, debt is not the problem, or credit cards are not the problem. It's your mismanagement of credit cards, or your mismanagement of debt is the problem. Okay, so I said,
Yes.
if exactly, and I tried to explain. I said, look, good debt. There's something called good debt, and I said, good debt is when you take the debt. You get to use the money, but someone else is paying for the debt. And I said, for example, if you have a rental property, You can take out you can take out the appreciation, or you can take out some of the money that the house appreciated. Take out some of that money, enjoy that money, and the tenant, will be paying for that rent. Or let's say you start a business with the money. You start the business, you get a loan for the business, you get to enjoy the loan money while your customers are paying for the business. And this is the same thing that happens throughout every company in the world. And people don't understand what's happening. Like, let's say you go to Target. Target has already borrowed money against the future sales that they're going to make that year. So the money, they've already gotten the money. Okay, and they've already gotten the money from the bank. And then the
Yes.
customers are the one that's paying back that loan. So
Yes.
if you hear about companies going bankrupt, and you say, how can this company go bankrupt? They're so big, they're so rich, and so forth. But in order for you to go bankrupt, you need to have debt. Okay, so which means that you couldn't pay the debt. All it means is that the customers were not able, they didn't have enough customers to pay off the debt that they already took for the year. So this is what's happening. And you can do the same thing. It doesn't have to be in a big level with the, let's say with Kmart or something like that. It doesn't have to be in that kind of level. But you can also buy shares of a company, and then instead of executing those shares or selling those shares, you can just borrow against those shares. Okay, and then use that money that you borrowed, and the shares, will eventually, if you bought good stocks, the shares will eventually go up, and then you will be able to take advantage of that. So that's kind of like the idea here, for people to kind of shift their mindset on how they think about money. So it's a lot
Beautiful.
going on, but
Yes. Beautifully articulated, Mr. Paul. Very well said. How do you define financial freedom in today's world?
nice, good question. I think financial freedom. People have a misconception of financial freedom and financial independence, which I wrote in the book. And I think there are two different things. Financial freedom is the ability to live a life not worrying about money. That doesn't mean that you don't go to work. That doesn't mean that you don't have a job, you don't have a business, you don't have any of this stuff, that you're just sitting at home doing nothing. It means that you are able to go to dinner, have a conversation with your wife without having to think about or have a conversation only about money. And that's what financial freedom means. Financial independence means that you have enough cash flow or enough resources from your personal assets to cover all your expenses. That's financial independence, that you have enough money coming in from passive income that you don't have to actively work to cover all of your expenses. And that's what financial independence is. But everyone's goal is to one day to get to financial independence. But on your way to financial independence, you can be financially free throughout the whole journey. You can be financially free mentally throughout the whole journey on your way to financial independence. And that's my goal. And the best way to start being financially free is to save some money. The easiest thing you can do, it doesn't matter the amount, it doesn't matter how much money it is that people, it's the fact that you're able to have some money in the bank, and that alone is going to give you a little bit of peace of mind. And the more you have in the bank, the more peace of mind you're going to have. So in the book, I explain that your first step, you don't need to go to some investment banker. You don't need to go through all these things. So maybe you don't have enough money to start one of those accounts, but you just go straight to your bank and say, hey, look, I want to open a certificate of deposit. That's kind of like the easiest thing that you can do. That's like the first step to financial freedom is say, look, I decided to open a certificate of deposit. If it's $500, if it's $1,000, if it's $10,000, whatever you have, you need to go ahead and open a certificate of deposit, which is like step number one. All right. If you can't do that, if you can't, and I know people that make a lot of money. I know people that make 5,000, 10,000, even $20,000 a month, and
Yes.
they don't have $1,000 to open a certificate of deposit. They don't have that. They can't open a CD with $1,000. And this is the problem. The problem is that they're living a high standard life. You know, they have a high standard of living. But they're spending everything that comes in. They're living paycheck to paycheck. And I said, look, if you don't do this, you're just like 2 or 3 paychecks away from disaster. So I said, look, what we have to do, you have to open a certificate of deposit and keep it there for a year. And that's kind of like the main message. And once you do that, guess what's going to happen? Your brain is going to start thinking and have the audacity to start dreaming again about what are some of the possibilities that you can do with this money, instead of always thinking about negative, like, okay, what's wrong? What do I need to pay? What I got to do, and this and that. But once you start having the audacity to dream again, then that's what's called financial freedom. When you have some money, you say, hey, maybe if I get to $5,000, I can open another account, or maybe I can go on a vacation with my family, or maybe I can do this. Then you start thinking about all of the possibilities, and not only the possibilities, then you start thinking that the possibilities are possible for you. And that's the key. And that's the way, and it all starts with just saving that first payment. That's first saving. That's like that first step that you need to take. And once you do that, you're going to start seeing everything else start to change in your life. That's the goal.
Very well said, Mr. Paul. Again, very well said. Can you briefly explain your approach to making finances real easy?
Well, like I said, when I say make finances real easy for everyone, I try to make it real accessible to everyone. That's why I focus on the certificate of deposit. I said, look, you need to go, because they're everywhere. Any bank has it. You don't need to call an investor, because you don't know anything about mutual funds. You don't know anything about stocks. You don't know anything about ETFs yet. You don't know anything about all of this, jargon. And then they're going to tell you, oh, look, you're going to put we need to put $10,000. You need to do this. And if you're not at that level yet, okay, what you do is you start with the certificate of deposit. And while you're saving that money in the certificate of deposit, and you're increasing your deposits, you're getting it higher. During that time, you can use that time to start learning about other assets. It's not just you're saving the money, but while you're saving, you're taking that time to say, hey, what is an ETF? Okay, what is a mutual fund? What's the difference? Or what are individual stocks? Okay, what is the S&P 500? Then you're going to take that time. Okay, what about real estate? How do I get into real estate? Should I take a real estate course? Should I learn how to flip real estate or whatever? So you're going to use that time that you're saving to start learning and getting ahead of the curve, because once you have the money available, once you have that $10,000, $15,000, or $20,000 saved up, then you'll have the knowledge to know what to do with it. What a lot of people do is that they have some money, they get some money saved up, and then guess what happens? That's when they started thinking, okay, what am I going to do with this money? It's too late now. If you're in this moment, it's too late, because the money's already here. And guess what you're going to do with it? Most likely, you're not going to have the knowledge or experience to do anything good with it. And this is the situation. Okay. So it's saving, and also taking that opportunity to learn something, learn a new skill, learn about real estate, learn about trading, learn about different assets, learn about managing a business. A lot of things you can do during that time in order for you to take advantage of the money once the money gets here. And it's not just about, okay, I want you to save and don't do anything with your life. In the book, I actually have a phrase that I like to use. It says, spend some, save some. Because if you spend all of it today, you won't be happy tomorrow. But if you save all of it today, you won't be happy now. So I don't want you to save everything. I want you to spend some, save some. I want you to enjoy your life, go out to dinner, do things that you have to do, but also save at the same time. You're probably thinking, oh my God, how do you do that? Okay. But it all happens if you can organize yourself a little bit. If you go through the book, read a little bit, and then you'll find the 5-step savings plan that I laid out. And you'll see how you can easily go ahead and start saving money just by starting with your first certificate of deposit. This is the key.
Mr. Paul, what common misconceptions about money management do you address in your book?
Oh, very good question. Common information that I get is that the common misconception is that people think they're going to save money and then they're going to retire on the money that they saved. It's not. It's not going to happen. You're not going to be able to retire off that money. That is not the purpose of saving money. Okay, you can never save yourself enough money to retire, well enough in your 70s or your 80s or whatever. That money, the money that you saved up, is to catapult you to other types of investments. That's the goal of the money. Okay, for example, it's to create a nest egg or some kind of money that you can use maybe to put down a down payment on a rental property, or maybe you can use it to buy some stocks or to buy ETFs or to buy the S&P 500 to do something that you know about because you've already studied it and you've made the decision to go that route. All right. Then you can use that money to create what I like to call cash flow. You need to use cash flow. This is the key. It's not about accumulating wealth. It's about creating cash flow. So that money that you saved up is going to be leveraged to buy a rental property. And that rental property hopefully is paying you $200, $300, or $500 a month. And that cash flow is the money that you're going to be able to use for the rest of your life because you're going to own that property. And this is the idea, to create as much cash flow that you can in order to cover your expenses, not only your expenses now, but your expenses in the future. A lot of people think that their expenses in the future is going to be a lot more than their expenses now, which is not true. Okay. Your expenses now are a lot more than your expenses in the future because when you're older, you're not going to go out as much. You're not going to drive to work every day. There's a lot of things that you're not going to spend money on. Okay. So it's basically, we want to start thinking about how we can have some money coming in to cover all of our expenses now and in the future.
Now in the future, indeed. So, Mr. Paul, what will be your short-term and long-term goals and an author?
Okay. Well, I think like my short-term goal is actually to get this message out there to help people that are struggling, that are stressed about money, and kind of give them like a little crack in the door, a little opening, so that they can see a way out. So I can kind of help them with that. I really want to I love doing this podcast thing. Get to talk to people like you, Daniel, which is great, and hopefully I get to do more podcasts. So I'm trying to get on different podcasts and see if I can talk about my book and see how people will receive it. I love to get questions. You can find me on Instagram, on Paul Craan Official on Instagram and YouTube. You can find me on TikTok. Okay, Paul Craan Official on TikTok also. Okay, and any of those things. And I love to get questions. Just write me, text me, or whatever, and maybe we can start up a conversation. That's pretty much what I want to do. I just want to help as many people as I can because I was in a situation where I was stressed about money 24 hours a day. Now I am financially free, and I wish I can get everybody else on this side. Okay, so it's kind of
Yes,
like, wow.
indeed. Good luck to your goals, Mr. Paul. And what will be your advice for those people out there want to have financial freedom?
Well, I think my number one advice is to have financial freedom is to stop looking for answers out there. Stop looking. Okay, I need to get a second job. I need to work harder. I need to start a new business. I need to dance on TikTok. I don't know, whatever it is you're thinking about doing. Okay, whatever it is you're thinking about doing. Stop looking out there and start focusing on the money that you're already receiving, either from your job or from your company or whatever. Start looking at that money and see how you can use that money to improve your financial situation. Okay, that's kind of the goal, because the money that you're already making, you can find a way to use that money to buy your own freedom.
So to wrap up our discussion for today, Mr. Paul, what are some financial traps people should avoid at all costs?
Well, number one thing I talk against, and I'm probably going to get in trouble for this, but a lot of people get caught up in network marketing and those kind of trying to get rich quick ideas or something like that. And I say, look, there is no fast way to becoming successful. Everybody thinks, okay, I'm going to do this and I'm going to become rich and so forth. Well, it takes. I call it the 3 W's of success. I said, first, you need to wonder, which means you need to imagine all the possibilities. Second, you need to work. You need to work at it to make that imagination real. And number 3, the third W is you need to wait. All right, you need to give it time to realize, time for it to happen. So people that rush and try to do things quickly, it often doesn't end well. So I figure, take a long approach to success. All right. And start building it, little by little. Maybe you will get a $10,000 or $20,000 a month. Maybe you can get that, quickly. But until then, that shouldn't stop you from moving forward. So just start moving forward and then the success will come to you. That's my goal.
Yes, indeed, Mr. Paul Craan. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge to the world as well as your book. And we are hoping for more and more and more empowering books like this to come. So can you please invite our listeners to support your book itself?
Okay, yes, thank you. My book is on Amazon. You can just go on Amazon and get it. You can get it on Kindle or anything like that. Like I said, you can go to my page, paulcraneofficial.com, or you can paulcrane.com or Instagram, Paul Crane Official, or you can go to TikTok, Paul Crane Official, and you can check me out there. Okay.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. Paul Craan, because if you support him, more and more and more empowering books like this to come. So, Mr. Paul, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Daniel. Appreciate you letting me get on the podcast with you today.
Modicon people, see you soon.